today. So I'm a third-year Tesla student at Bishop's now. So I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. So I wanted to begin by saying that Bishop's University is located on traditional and unceded territory of the Abenaki people. We acknowledge that we are settlers on this land, and we will continue to educate ourselves and work towards reparative actions. I also would like to invite anybody in the chat to also share any land acknowledgements from their area. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this is the For Real project, which is aiming to generate new ideas in thinking, doing, and being as teachers. The idea here is to create resources for educators and teachers. All of this will be done through the website, which can be found simply by typing in For Real into Google, but I will also put the link in the chat. So that should be there. So for today's webinar, we welcome our speaker, Fabio Cortés, I hope I'm saying that right, who's going to be speaking us about AI and ESL, trying to keep up with the new affordances for educators. So Fabio Cortés is an ESL and Spanish as a second language teacher with over 10 years of experience I have here. So currently he's a PhD student at University of Laval. He's interested in exploring the impact of emerging artificial intelligence technologies in ESL education. So for now, I'll leave the floor to our speaker so that he can give a more information and more guidance on this very, very relevant and interesting topic.
Oh, thank you, Zoe. And hi, everyone. Well, as Zoe said, I'm Fabio, and today I hope I can offer something for you to take from this webinar. And so, just to get started, I would tell you, I intend to explore this application while commenting on the importance of developing our AI literacy. In order to do so, first, I want to do two things. I want to compare Magic School AI to other chatbots. Like, I want to compare it to ChatGPT, for example, to see how they are different or similar. And then I want to touch a little bit on AI literacy. I know there's a lot of literature coming out every single day on this topic, so we'll go over it like really briefly. Then we are going to talk about Magic School AI. We are going to see its features, and we are going to see 3 or 4 practical examples that are already prepared for you. So first, I want you to know that there are many other applications that work the same way Magic School AI does. I just chose Magic School because it is one of the first I got to know and I liked. So as I liked it, I chose that one. So mm, let's compare it to other chatbots like ChatGPT. So Magic School, as well as the other ones I already mentioned, well, I already showed, is especially tailored for teachers, but not only for language teachers, like math teachers could use it as well. And something like ChatGPT is meant to be used by anyone, like general public. Then there are some differences, like from my experience, I could say that Magic School helps you create the prompt. While if you want to get something similar from a chatbot like ChatGPT, you have to be really specific. You have to be better at prompting. And one difference I found was like in Magic School, I can just copy paste a YouTube video and it will help me create activities or the whole lesson plan. I cannot do that with ChatGPT. However, I could upload the video, like the file. but that has some other implications and it is double the work, so maybe it is not worth it. Both things have free and paid versions, as many things on the internet right now. I also want to talk a little bit about AI literacy. I chose two different documents. The first one is AI Competency Framework for Teachers, published by the UNESCO. So I chose this one because it tackles teachers and it has 5 aspects and 3 levels of progression. It is a very complete document. I don't consider myself an expert on this document, so I invite you to take a look at it. It is very, very, very relevant. And well, the aspects are human-centered mindset, ethics of AI, AI foundations and applications, AI pedagogy, and AI for professional development. And there are 3 levels of progression: acquire, deepen, and create. And then there's l'utilisation pédagogique, éthique et légale de l'intelligence artificielle générative, published by the Minister of Education of Quebec. This document offers some guidelines and advice for teachers to reflect upon the way they are using AI during their classes. It also has some legal advice, some things we should always take into account when using these applications. And what I tried to do next was to just mention some of the concepts that are included. There are some other concepts that I didn't include in this list, like copyright, authorship. I didn't include them, but as for this webinar, I found these ones to be a little bit more relevant, I would say. So the first one is human agency. Here we are talking about avoiding being over reliant on these applications and the fact that the use of AIs should be human driven. It should be humans making decisions, not the AIs making decisions for humans. Then we have technical skills. It is like it can range from something very simple as, do I know how to log onto the application and how to use it, as to, do I know that I can copy a code from ChatGPT, then open the visual editor of PowerPoint and paste the code, and it is going to create the whole presentation over there for me. So that. Then there's like a big part that is the ethical and legal use. For example, equity and inclusion are here. We should consider as teachers if all our students have like physical access to using these tools, and we should also think of the biases that are included in the products that are provided by these AI tools. Like, is everyone in the real world represented the same way or in a fair way in their databases? Then we have the output quality. I would say there are two main ways to see it. First, we have to check language quality. It is less evident in English, but it is more evident like in languages like Spanish or French, that there are some problems with language, especially with like very advanced grammar things. And also language could be not that natural sometimes, but we also have to double check the information it provides. We cannot just go there and trust what it says. I remember very well one meeting I had like 3 months ago. There was a quote at the end, and I read it, and I was like, it's a really cute one. And then someone said, like, hey, I like that quote. And the presenter said, yeah, I didn't know what to do, so I asked ChatGPT to give me one quote. And then I was like, I'm not sure if that person said that. Then I went to look for the quote, and that person never said that. But now there's a group of people who think that it was that way. And then we have environmental responsibility. I know there's a huge discussion on the resources these applications use just to provide you with an answer. And I don't really know how much water it uses, but I know we should be careful with using it. And we're going to touch on that when we talk about appropriate pedagogical use as well. Then we have personal data security. Again, I want to mention two things. As teachers, when we ask our students to use these applications, we should be sure that there's no risk at all. For example, if they have to register and provide their email, their names, when they were born. So we have to check the terms and conditions for the users, and we have to check with our school boards to know if we really can use these applications. But there's also another thing. If, let's say, I have a 10-page essay, I don't know, or if I have something they wrote and I just want the Magic School to give me feedback so I don't have to do it, I have to be sure that I am not sharing information that may help identify who the person who wrote that is. So if I ask them to write a story about their lives, I will most likely avoid putting that information in these kinds of applications. And well, finally, appropriate pedagogical use. Over here, I have to think again, I always have two things. On one hand, is the use of the AI tool really improving my class? Is it achieving something that I cannot achieve without it? And on the other hand, I have to like evaluate my skills. So, do I know when to use them, how to use them, and why to use them, and also what is the best tool to use? So, those are the things I have to consider when making like a pedagogical use of these tools. Now let's go into Magic School AI. There are many, many, many features, so I cannot name them all, but I would just like to say like there are some features, some functions that we may imply it does, and it really does, like creating a lesson plan, creating a worksheet, creating a rubric, and giving me a plan for a unit. But there are other things that we may not know, like making report card comments, or, well, I already talked about the YouTube videos, or creating a song, generating a song, I'm sorry. So, my invitation is like, if you're interested in these applications, you should go and explore them on your own because there are many, many things that we cannot cover today. Then this is just an example of how it works. We are going to choose one of the functions, in this case, text-dependent questions, and it is going to ask us to provide some information, like the level, number of questions in this case, the type of questions we want, and the text. Over here, for example, we have to be careful. We should avoid like sharing some text due to copyright. Like if we are not authorized to use the text, we shouldn't put it here. Also, depending on the function we choose on the feature, it is going to ask for different categories of information. And what I did again was I compared it to ChatGPT. Why? Because the way I see that these applications ask you for some information like the level and so on, I think they are just helping you with the prompt. So I really like this one, AI resistant activities. there is that function in which I just had to include the level, uh, any other contextual information I wanted to share, and the task. What I chose for my Spanish class was that my students had to create a menu for a restaurant based on the cuisine of a Latin American country. And I said, okay, I don't want them to use ChatGPT. Uh, and Magic School AI gave me three options. In the first one, they emphasize on students having to make some interviews. In the second one, students had to mix two types of cuisine and they had to create a new dish. And in the third one, they have to create multimedia to present the results. And then I did the same thing with ChatGPT, but instead of just choosing the categories, I just uh, wrote the whole prompt, including the same information, but I wrote it myself. It gave me 6 ideas. I only pasted the first one because I had no more space. And all in all, what I think is both applications are mentioning things that I have been hearing for quite some time, like focus on the process, not that much on the product. Evaluate the process, not the product. Focus on high order thinking skills. So I just wanted to share this example to show you that we could do the same thing using both things sometimes. Then I have generating texts. I chose this one because it says informational texts. And then one of the options said expository texts. So if I read that at first glance, I would say that's something I can trust. That is going to be something very factual. Then I thought like there might be some topics that are very well represented in the databases. So that might be correct. They might have correct information. So I thought of something that might not very popular on the internet in English, and that is my hometown in Colombia. That is called Fusagasugá. So I asked it to write a paragraph about the history of my hometown. Then I went to the official website of my hometown and verified the information, and it turns out, oh, I remember just things. Fusagasugá doesn't mean that. And it wasn't founded that year either. So again, this is an invitation to verify the information produced by these applications. So we should not only verify the quality of the language, but the quality of the information. If we ask these tools to produce something about a topic we are not very familiar with, we should always go double check that information. Then over here, we have comments on students' performance. I wanted to highlight over here that the developers maybe knew that it is not good to give students names, so they ask you to provide pronouns. But anyways, we should be careful not to provide like a personal information when using these applications. And finally, creating unit plans. Sometimes I feel like I have a very, very good idea, but I cannot manage to put all the pieces together. And then what I do is I compare my ideas to something produced by an AI to see if maybe there's something I am missing. I don't always take what is produced over here because not because I don't think that could be good, but sometimes I think it could be good, but not good enough. Or there are things that don't go with me, just that. So I do think these kind of functions for me are useful, but I also wanted to highlight the very end. It is asking me to say if I want to use any standards to create the unit. And then it said standard 3.1, understanding use various, sorry, I have to move this, I cannot see, discourse markers in spoken and written discourse. At first glance, I would say, oh, it knows these standards. Then I went to look for it, and I don't know if it was me, if I didn't look for it the way it should have, but I didn't find any standard that said 3.1 understand and use various discourse markers in spoken and written discourse. So we shouldn't trust that either. And well, those were the things I wanted to share with you. I just wanted to give you like an overview of what this application is, and I wanted to give you examples of how you should evaluate the products it gives you. I don't know if you may have any questions, if you would like me to go back to any of the examples, any of the information. You.
Monica, go ahead.
Thanks. Oh, Fabio, I always have questions. Thanks so much for that, introduction and overview. I was joking in the chat that I think I'm AI illiterate, but, I'm working on it. And when I listen to someone like you discuss it, it always brings something new. I thought your very last example was really interesting about the standards, and I kind of wonder, like, are they pulling is it pulled out of, maybe the Common Core standards for the US, and they're like US, Quebec, same thing, or it's I think it's really interesting because we always put a lot of emphasis on making sure we address our competencies in ESL and our Quebec education program, and I find, I guess, in some of my initial experimentations, that's one of the things I've found difficult using AI like Magic School or TWE, because they don't know the Quebec education program. So they give me, like generic, whatever, comprehension questions or a generic outline for a listening activity, but they struggle to really connect with the specific targeted competencies and structure, the vocabulary of our program. And I'm sure others in other provinces and other countries face the same challenge. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's not really a question, it's just a comment.
yeah, exactly. And to add something to that, I do think it takes like some general information and it says like, I think this applies over here. For example, there's this option to adapt material. So we can adapt it according to the level, according to, I don't know, the origin of the student. But then I said like, I want you to adapt it to this kind of population and then to this other kind of population. It gave me almost the same thing.
Mm.
So I asked, what are the changes you made? It gave me like 9 points.
Huh?
And then I said like, but I don't see this reflected in the changes. It went like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to create everything again.
Ah,
It gave me another plan,
so it kind
which
of
anyways
excused
wasn't that
itself.
adapted.
And it still wasn't that adapted. So it's
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
I'm sorry, I'll do it again. And it still wasn't there. Oh, it's fascinating. I'm always admiring, Fabio, how you You know how to ask the AI the next question. Like you quiz it and go, hey, well, how did you give me that? And can you do it a different way? Like I don't think to ask those questions. And I always think it's really interesting that you do that. I'm sorry, I'll be quiet because Sunny has a question.
Oh no. There is something. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I thought my mic is there's something wrong with my computer suddenly. Anyway, I just a comment on what Monica just said. I'm thinking, like on the one hand, we want, or this is quite paradoxical. It's very interesting that you ask AI to generate AI resistant activities, which is very interesting. But at the same time, I also see that the literacy skills or the thinking skills becomes different in nature. So, for example, the skills would be more strategy based, like how do I, or mediation based literacies. So how, if I don't get the results, what command should I make in order that people can understand me, or not people, but this AI agent will be able to understand me in order to get the result. So I find it interesting. So it's almost like we are training our students with a different set of skills plus the traditional language and literacy skills. Anyway, so I have a question for you. So the Magic School AI, is it, they also use large language models, is that right?
Yes.
So my question will be, like, following up on what Monica said, I'm also guessing that they have, because online, I think there's a lot of presence of, the American Common Core standards. So if we impute the Quebec progression of learning, for example, then will this agent be able to generate the different kinds of categories that we would like?
To be honest, I haven't done something like that. I don't feel I have the right to upload any kind of document or information sometimes, so I don't do it. But I think that would be a very nice experiment, since this is like a public document. Maybe
Right.
that's something that could be done. But yeah, same thing. I was actually I was planning to do an example with the rubric thing, but then I said like, this rubric was made by my colleague. I'm not doing that. So yeah, I think that could be something to experiment with, but to be honest, I haven't done that. But I would expect it to do it correctly if that's the case.
One thing that I totally agree with you, that no matter what, we have to check and double check, because there are a lot of hallucinations. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there are any other
questions or comments?
Can I pose a question to Lisa, one of our participants, actually? But I'm asking because she just finished one of my courses in which we created a lot of materials for our project, and I invited the students to use AI applications if they wanted to produce some of the materials. And interestingly enough, just using Canva, you're already using kind of the built-in AI that's part of Canva already. So I'm just curious, but I asked them to I didn't train them on all of this. I just said, go ahead if you have the skills and you want to do it, do it. So I'm just curious, Lisa, did you guys end up using some AI for your materials development in your project?
We did. We used Canva. So so part of the project is we had to create a children's book, and we used Canva for the illustrations of the book, because it was the easiest, rather than trying to gather things online. I know one group did everything by themselves, which was so impressive. I was blown away. But no, for us, none of us were artists in our group, so we chose Canva.
Okay. Yeah. Which is absolutely fine, but I just think I don't know what it's like for other teacher candidates and also maybe in-service teachers that are joining us in terms of how you're already using AI, but I'm like just baby stepping my toes into the water and inviting my students to do the same as a teacher trainer. So I'm just curious about other people's experiences and if anything in what Fabio said made kind of jumped out at you today.
So what I would usually do, because I had to do a project about AI and stuff, so I started playing with it a little. Magic School Plus was one of the ones I tried. And so I would fill in the things, and then from what the AI would output, would give me, then I would go on and modify it with my stuff, but I wouldn't really necessarily continue with the AI, if that makes sense. Like I would just gather the ideas and then be like, oh, okay, and then use my knowledge to modify whatever it spewed out.
Well, Bianca, that seems to speak to what was it, your first principle of the on human-centered mindset from UNESCO, and that idea that at the end of the day, it's a human, it's Bianca behind it all, right? Making those choices. That's great, Bianca. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that there are still mindful teachers behind it making decisions. Oh, and Philippa just weighed in the chat too. I don't know if people saw that, but also a similar approach. That's how she does it too, kind of taking the AI as a draft. Fabio, did you have I know you decided to show us Magic School AI, but I know when I was at a REEAL training, they were talking about TWE. Do you have any other AIs besides ChatGPT, like TWE or other educational ones that you like, but you chose Magic AI for particular reasons today?
Oh, no, actually, it was the other way around. It was like there are these that are really popular. And oh, what's wrong with this? They're like these ones, like Class Companion, Almanac, Diffit, a Copilot, Brisk, Ed Cafe. And Tree, of course. I don't know why I did include Tree, since I have talked to you sometimes about Tree. What I have seen is they work in a very, very similar way. Features are almost always the same. Maybe layouts could be different, but otherwise, in my opinion, they are very, very, very similar.
Yeah, I see Philippa's asking in the chat, what is TWE? It's beyond saying it's another AI for educators to produce and tweak lesson materials. I don't think it's ESL specific, but just for educators generally. I don't know, Fabio, if you can add a bit more to contextualize TWE.
Actually, I'm just logging over here to show you that it is a very similar thing. And I'm just going to stop sharing that one, and I'm going to share over here. So yeah, this is TWE. It works in a very similar way. We have a set of pre-established functions that we can use, but this one, it is more like for language teachers. Actually, we have ESL lesson plans, for example. So this one is more focused on language teaching. Yeah, I should have something I have created. Oh yeah, I create something for my Spanish courses because sometimes in Spanish it is very difficult to find material. So what I did was I had YouTube videos and I created listening activities that was very useful for me. So yeah, that's three, for example.
I think I wonder if others feel this way because I mean, I think it's wonderful. Bianca was exploring it in one of her courses. She was looking at AI, but I just feel that for me, the time is such an issue. Teachers everywhere and university profs for sure are so busy, and finding the time to get training like today, but also to have the time to explore and experiment and find the AI that works for me is so challenging. So I appreciate at least the recommendation, Fabio. I don't know about
Thank you.
others, but I feel like time's the big barrier to this thing.
Exactly. For example, what I do sometimes, what I did, for example, last week was I wanted to play a bingo with them, but creating the cards takes some time. So I just asked it to create the cards for me. Then I modified some words because the definitions were not as I wanted them to be, and that was all. It saved me a lot of time. There's what?
Zoe has a question.
Yeah, I was just waiting to make sure we were all good. I'm a little bit curious because in all our classes and everything, we're very discouraged from the use of AI. I mean, we explore it in a lot of our classes as a resource, but we're pretty like heavily pushed to not using AI at least while we're still studying, which I think makes sense. But do you think that like these applications and AI use as a teacher is kind of like an inevitable future, or do you see it just more as a resource or a tool?
Well, I think sometimes we're discouraged because we are afraid of our students or ourselves becoming over reliant on these applications. And of course, I don't want to prepare a whole project and I don't want my student to go out there and just use ChatGPT to do it. So what I think is like when we don't know what to do yet, we prefer just to prohibit that. And that's a very safe approach, I would say. But anyways, these applications are out there and we have to learn how to live with these applications. So either now or later, we have to get used to evaluating, for example, under these applications and create material for our students under these applications. Whether we want to use them to create that material or not, that is going to be up to us. It could save some time, but someone could say, no, I prefer to do it myself. I prefer to, I don't know, take some papers, cut things, and write with my markers. So yeah, that's what I think the point is it is like, as for sure some students are not prepared to deal with this, and they might just try to do everything with that, and we would be like in a certain way encouraging to agree and sorry encouraging to spread misinformation in a certain way if we allow that. So we might say like it's prohibited. So that's just my point of view.
Yeah, teaching them to be critical, to be strategic, is
Exactly.
also very important. Yeah. Agree.
Exactly. As some strategies are as well, like you don't want them to use them, so ask them to use them. Like, okay, you are going to write something yourself, and then you are going to ask this chat to give you feedback. And then they are like, okay, so I have to do it because otherwise it wouldn't work.
I saw that there is one of the function is generating a song. Have you
Yeah.
used that? because the reason I asked is because I recently watched observed a class. This is a music class actually, and they were writing lyrics. And I find that, wow, this is because that can be done in an ESL classroom, but then I don't have that musical talent to immediately turn it into a song. Well, I just wonder if the AI has that function, so then it becomes way more rewarding for students to write, and then to write in a way that they are very sensitive to the pronunciation and then the consonants and syllables, and that can fit into the rhythm.
I haven't used that one, but I could try something over here. I'm sorry, I'm all the time talking about Colombia, so just just give me some time.
Oh.
Let's see how it goes.
Oh.
Could you guys see that? I don't know what you were saying. Oh,
We saw the keywords that you were.
yeah. Oh, I thought it was another thing that I had shared. So, okay, so let's see over here.
Wow.
This is just reading. But well, I don't know that much about music, so I don't know if
So they're using
there.
existing tunes, I guess.
Yeah, it's using
Oh.
Shake It Off.
Yeah.
Shake it. Fabio, you're not a Swiftie?
No, not that much. I know that song, but
Yeah.
but not that much. I used it because it was already there. So yeah. So yeah, this is accurate. This is accurate. This is accurate as well. Okay.
What about
Okay,
when you?
this is accurate as well.
So instead of asking AI to generate, they can write it and then fit into the music.
Exactly.
And
And
you,
I suppose as they said, it is based on this song, like one should already know that we
Mhm.
have to follow that rhythm to sing it.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I saw Florence has a question. Florence, would you like to ask the question out loud, or we can ask it for you?
Yeah, sure. I don't mind saying it out loud. I might come off as a bit critical, but I just want to
Mm.
have a debate of some sorts. It's because personally, I'm an artist. I sell my
Mm.
art on the side, and seeing people generate AI arts based off other artists' hard work, I feel like it's
Mhm.
stealing, in my opinion, and that's where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
How is it ethical, This is why
Mm.
I feel like a bit of resistance when I have to try AI for classes and stuff. But that's just my opinion, and I'd like to hear you guys your opinions as well.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. That's why I I chose not to provide the rubric my colleague has created because I thought exactly the same thing. So it is going to be using that rubric for further things, and that's his work, not my work. And that's why I never like to upload anything into this application. So I totally agree with you.
I
Alrighty,
think,
thank you.
can I jump in too? Florence, thanks so much for raising your concerns in the chat and voicing them. It seems to me when I was at a REEAL training recently, they were telling me that the Adobe AI image generator, and forgive me, I cannot think of the name of it right now, but they were mentioning that it's a more promising option specifically for the reason Florence was talking about, because it doesn't just scour the internet and steal, to borrow Florence's words, others' artistic creations. Instead, it works differently somehow. I admit I don't have all the details, but I think that maybe some AI companies are starting to respond to those concerns, although a ways to go. And to tag on to that, Florence brought up another important consideration, and it's one that I know there's been pushback in our teacher training program, is the environmental impact of AI use. I think that's a real consideration that we should think about. So I thank Florence for bringing that up. It takes huge amounts of energy to generate certain kinds of AI. I think the image generators are heavier draws maybe than the textual stuff, but still it's a real consideration in that ethics component.
Well, thank you so much for taking my concerns into consideration. It's really appreciated. I guess I understand that like not everyone has like access to like how much energy it exactly like takes to generate stuff. But I guess it's something like we're gonna have to figure out in the future as AI becomes like more and more common.
I had two teachers. They were studying an author and illustrator with the children, and then they asked the children to write the next chapter, and then so originally they planned to ask the children to use ChatGPT to then generate illustrations based on the based on the illustrator style. And so we did discuss the ethical issue, and at the end they decided not to do it. And I have read an article. There's some researchers in the UK. What they were doing instead, they asked students to write a story and like describing the scene, and then ask an AI agent to then generate a picture. And then if the picture is not what they like, then they have to change the text. They have to rewrite or improve the description so that it creates the picture that they like. So I know it's very difficult to draw the line because they're still using there's just like large language models, right? That they're still picking out words or phrases that are being highly being used. I'm guessing the same with the artistic techniques or styles, but then at least this is not, you're not asking AI to replicate a particular artist style. And then the focus is not so much on the picture, the focus is on the description of the scene. So then they have to change, they have to rewrite the scene so that it becomes a better illustration. So yeah, I feel that there's so many things that we can do, and then so many things we need to think about also. Yeah, the ethical issues. Again, thank you for raising this. Thank you, Monica, for posting that.
I wonder, Fabio, we've all been responding to your impetus with Magic School. What are your thoughts as we move towards the end of today's session after talking with everyone?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, first, I'm glad to see that uh, a lot of people have been using these applications. I think that's the first step. I hope I could add a little bit of how could I say it? Like, I encourage you not to trust the AI in a certain way, because I think that is the main mistake we might have been doing for some time. And also, I hope that we have now more tools to question AIs and to ask AIs what they are doing. Yeah, that's what I hope.
Are there anyone in the audience who have done something with AI and would like to share also?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. And as we were talking, we were talking about the AI literacies. One of the first things is human agency, and that we should avoid over reliance on these things, because that is going to be detrimental to our creativity and our critical thinking skills.
I think Lisa had her hand up to add a comment.
I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. I'm not overly familiar with different forms of AI. I haven't used a lot, but I can see the positive aspects of it. I substitute teach sometimes while I'm still in the program, but I'll substitute teach, and sometimes we go into classes and nothing has been prepared, so you're kind of doing it on the fly. So I do like to have activity sheets, and I can see using perhaps AI generated worksheets would be really helpful and save me a lot of time that I'm not paid for to have something prepared for the students. But at the same time, I think it is important to, just as you've been doing and as has been mentioned, is to kind of double check, is fact checked. If it's okay for like small activities, but I am wary, I suppose, of overusing it and losing that aspect of human agency to make our own decisions. So as Monica said, I'm proceeding with caution. I think it's great, and perhaps it's a jump start to form ideas and brainstorm, but I'm cautious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caroline has a comment. Would you like to open your mic and say it, or?
Sorry, it was just more of a comment in general. I think to be very careful, I think, just in terms of prejudice based off of the answers we're getting from it. I think personally, I see AI as like a digital parrot. It repeats a lot of the information we feed into it, but it doesn't always understand what it's saying. So it's very much an illusion. So I think it's great to question everything in general and to just to be cautious. But anything can be a great tool, but anything can also be abused.
That is so true.
I have a quick question for those who are working in schools right now. Do you know what the AI policy is regarding using it with students, like showing students how to use it? Because the schools I have worked at right now, well, the AI policy just changed, but it was really restrictive in that we couldn't use it with students at all or modelize it or anything, model it. So I was just curious about others.
Caroline, you have your hand up.
Hi, yeah. I've been an elementary school teacher now for 5 years in Quebec. And this year specifically, I can tell you, we've been required to do, I have to say, just this school year, maybe 3 or 4 formations just based with AI. And we are prohibited about speaking about AI in elementary and high school with my specific centre de service. And naturally, based off of the Quebec government, they tend to follow the same. I think there can be maybe a delay in understanding of the way we speak about it, just perspective about being maybe in university and then having to transfer that into now, okay, I was maybe able to, and we were able to have that open conversation, and then getting into elementary and then being, or high school, and then being completely shut out. And that reality changing for you is difficult, but we're not allowed to talk about it with students, especially I think when it comes to their understanding in general. Kids can be so easily duped, and it's a very kind of dark rabbit hole with them. So they're not really sure how to exercise critical judgment in general. So I think bringing up something like that to them, even in high school, can be difficult. But yeah, unfortunately, to go back to your question, we're not allowed to discuss it with them at all. In terms of materials we're allowed to use and access to it, they're not allowed to prohibit access to it, in terms from us. But we are heavily, being taught and giving resources on how to use it ethically, responsibly, and professionally.
And in response as well to that, I just thought it might be interesting. I put 2 links in the chat for everyone. The first one is that guide d'utilisation. What is the name of the whole document? Sorry, it's the one that Fabio cited. There, he's showing it to us. Yeah, exactly. There we go. So that's the guide for teachers. So I don't know how. I mean, the question was really pertinent because I don't know to what degree that document that came out, I think in November, is actually living in schools, but that was the latest directive from the government. And then I just linked the REEAL's guidelines, which I find like kind of accessible and super helpful. So.
Thank you so much for sharing those material resources.
Yeah, over here they're saying this, for example, like under 13 shouldn't use it at all, as Caroline was saying, and we need consent, parental consent, if someone is under 18. That's what they mentioned there.
And I think too, the way these general guidelines might be taken up at a school level, especially if it's a private school, it might be quite different as compared with like the public sector, et cetera.
Well, does anyone have some last comment or question? We have 1 minute left. If no, please join us to thank Fabio again for his wonderful sharing today. And thank you for coming, for having this dialogue. We always enjoy this kind of conversation and exchange, especially to inform ourselves about a better, teaching practice and also the latest theories in the field. This is the last webinar for this academic year. So we will restart again in October. So we will be in touch. And so please keep an eye out for our poster and then our program for next year. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.